How's it rockin', Dween Nation? You're listening to the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before you give us a listen, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and we are here for Week 11 of the NFL season. We're going to talk some starts and sits for the week. You know, obviously, you guys know how this episode rolls out. We got quarterback, running back, wide receiver. We got a sit of the week, one player that just we cannot put in our lineups. And then we got the kickers of the week as well. Always a fun add to the end because, yeah, kickers win weeks sometimes. You know, if you got them in your league, they can either miss one that, you know, ruined you. They missed that 30-yarder. You're like, come on, young Goku from last week. Or, you know, or you have that big one. I remember Boswell, the very first game, had like 27 points. Or Aubrey used to before the Cowboys offense started to sell. But anyway, you know how starts and sits work. We're really excited to get into it. But before we do, how you doing, Genoa?
Yo, Dween Nation. Justin, I'm doing good. Yep, we're on a week 11 now. So this season is flying. Been a fun season. And I'm excited to get into these, episodes for this week, Justin. We're on the road to the playoffs. We're about what? Month away, less than a month away.
Crazy.
So, fantasy championships will be determined. Not on that, this time next month. It starts really now. How you kind of pick pick off the waiver wire, as well as players, if you start them or you should sit them. So thankfully, this is the episode to kind of make your way to the fantasy playoffs. It's now or never for those people kind of fighting it for a playoff spot.
Yeah, and around this time as well, you're probably hitting your trade deadlines. You're getting close to it at least, or maybe it has already passed. But try to get those deals in as late as you can. Today, in fact, we had a trade where I was involved in, which I actually kind of want to get your take on the show. I'll give the audience a listen. I won't say who traded what, and I'll let Dwayne Nation decide who won the trade. But we had Zay Flowers, Jahmyr Gibbs, Cedric Tillman, and Jalen Warren get moved for J.K. Dobbins, Drake London, Brian Thomas Jr., and David Njoku. That's the trade. I'll let Genoa discuss it, and then we'll say who won the trade, even though we won't figure that out for until.
Well, I would say this, okay? If whoever's giving off Drake London and J.K. Dobbins, obviously you get two fantastic starters. But then, Jahmyr Gibbs, I feel like he's going to have a great kind of fantasy season. There could be a chance like the Lions, they're going to kind of ease on kind of using Montgomery because they're going to need him during the playoff run, their actual playoff run. But, J.K. Dobbins he's a little concerning in my opinion. Yes, he's had a great season coming back from those back-to-back ACL tears, but, with the Chargers, it's really tough to say if they're going to really commit to him down the fantasy stretch because Gus Edwards is back. This is a guy that, obviously both these backs are familiar in the hardball system. Gus Edwards can kind of vulture and take those goal line touches from J.K. Dobbins. Let's see, you said that Zay Flowers is being, with the Gibbs. I like Zay Flowers just because he's going to get a lot of that. He is a part of Lamar Jackson's MVP year. So anytime you have a target from Lamar Jackson's or an MVP in general, whether you had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in 2018 with Mahomes, or, maybe even, the year that Hurts had a great year in 2022, you had whether, Devontae or A.J. Brown, you have pieces of an offense that has an MVP caliber quarterback. Even, a few years ago when it was Rodgers winning MVP in Green Bay, he had Devontae Adams and like Alan Lazard and Robert Tonyan. If you have like a piece of that MVP, kind of season, it's still a win-win. And you're getting Lamar's arguably number one, number two guy. So I'm a big Jahmyr Gibbs fan. I think he is definitely a RB1. Obviously, he has some competition there. But, those running backs in Detroit, they kind of take pride in being, kind of sharing the touches. And they still score. They still get, Gibbs has had 10 or more fantasy points every game this year. And, you're giving away Brian Thomas. If you're giving away Brian Thomas, you might not sure if he's going to get a lot of those targets involved with Trevor Lawrence not there. Matt Jones sucks. And then, Njoku too. I guess if you're trading away Njoku, that's really what hurts because Njoku is going to be a great tight end. for the rest of the season with Jameis behind the helms. So looking at it on paper, you could say the person who acquired Drake London, J.K. Dobbins, Njoku, and Brian Thomas won the trade. But I just like Jahmyr Gibbs. It just all depends who you have and who you gave away and who you didn't give away.
Yeah. I mean, Dwayne Nation, the trade, I acquired Jahmyr Gibbs in this one. I was on the Flowers, Gibbs, Tillman, and Warren side, receiving those players. It was hard to get rid of London. London was the biggest one that I was like, I really don't want to. His schedule is phenomenal, and he's been really good. The Dobbins thing, yeah, Gus Edwards showed up and kind of scared me a little with how much he was utilized in his first game back. The only plus to me with Dobbins, or like future that I could see him doing well, is his best 2 games of the season were week 1 and week 2. Gus Edwards was healthy in those games, so you could look at it in that direction. Because when Dobbins was the only guy, he was very much less efficient, but he was also getting all the touches. It was still a very solid, high end RB2. And then Njoku was a hard one to give up, but I do have Trey McBride in our main league, so it was like I already have a very good tight end. He would be my backup. So I lose that depth there for sure, but I have McBride. And then the last one, Brian Thomas, I agree. The Mac Jones as quarterback scares me a lot. But I do expect Lawrence to return after their bye. So he's out this week. They have a bye week, and then he should be back. If there is some colossal catastrophic news that he's out for the season, then I'm very happy I got out of the Brian Thomas sweepstakes. Not to any fault of Brian Thomas, just the quarterback, and they'll probably be firing their coach soon, and things are just going to start going down the rabbit hole of tanking. And then last thing to talk about, on the players I got. A goal of mine also was to get players on good teams that are going to contend right now. That consist of Baltimore, that consist of Detroit trying to win the NFC, and their division, and then Cedric Tillman, not as much, but he was getting targeted, so I was like, please get him in the deal. And then Warren is essentially a throwaway just to make it a 4 for 4. But Warren even has slight upside with Najee being a little questionable, but I believe Najee's going to be just fine. They already said that they expect him to play. But yeah, I know this was a side tangent, Dwayne Nation, but it's always fun to kind of analyze trades, especially because our league was talking about it today on who won, even though we won't know for a month or 2 months till the end of the season. But yeah, and it was right before the deadline. Me and this guy Trey, we were texting and we were like, I was like, we got 10 minutes. Like, we need to decide now. And then we're working things because we had a different offer and then we jumped to a different offer. But that's what trades are, and it was fun. Like regardless if you think you won or lost, like the art of negotiations and getting, talking to someone, trying to work these trades, and then having it actually be accepted and go and hopefully going through is kind of the adrenaline rush you needed throughout the day. But anyway, now we're going to dive into starts and sits. Dwayne Nation, though, let us know what you thought about the trade, if you have any trade off ideas and that you needed to run by before, your deadline hits, if you have a deadline. And then, if you need to start those players, because I know now with getting Flowers and Tillman, I got a start decision on that. But anyway, on to the starts. We're going at quarterback. And for me, I have my quarterback, pickup of the week from our waiver wire show, and it's Russell Wilson. He played very good against the Commanders last week, threw 3 touchdowns. Now he heads into this game against the Ravens, where they are dead last against quarterbacks. We just saw Joe Burrow go bananas, and I'm not saying Russell Wilson's going to go with Joe Burrow, but the Ravens defense has struggled mightily. Another week for Mike Williams to be into this offense, as well as, of course, they got George Pickens and Freiermuth. And then I think, honestly, as much as they're already saying that Najee's going to play this game, Baltimore's run defense is one of the best in the league. And if Najee's were to be limited in any capacity, Jaylen Warren and this offense will definitely throw more. We'll see more checkdowns and screen plays because Warren's not that heavy bruiser back that Najee is. So I got high hopes. They're at home in a divisional matchup.
Yeah, Justin, I love Russell Wilson this week. It's crazy that Baltimore secondary has just struggled, mightily there. Baltimore is always known for having those ferocious defense, and which leads to a great pass rush, and the front seven leads to pretty good secondaries that get pretty good critical stops. But they have been thrown kind of all over this year, thrown on. It kind of makes you, kind of gives Seattle an appreciation for their current head coach, who was their last year's defensive coordinator. And maybe you kind of look back and say, man, maybe this coach was legit. Maybe he really was the right hire. Obviously, Seattle's struggling, but just through the quarterback area. But everything else, it kind of, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're excited for the future with your head coach. And so, this defense is this is probably one of the worst, John Harbaugh defense since he's gotten hired in 07, 08, I think when he got hired. This is the worst about, defense that Baltimore's had in the last 15 years. And that's their bread and butter. The Ray Lewis, Ed Reed era. And even after that, where they had C.J. Mosley and, Earl Thomas and stuff like that. So, definitely like Russell Wilson to have a great game. You got to look at the game script as well, which is what makes Russell Wilson such a great start, Justin, because this is a game that could be determined for the division. This is a game that could be possibly even determined for the, number 2 seed, number 1 potentially. If Chiefs lose, 1 or 2 games, which probably might have happened, but they still, they have Buffalo. There's a chance they could lose that game. Russell Wilson needs to have a great game to get those Steelers up there and to get over the Ravens in the standings. So Russell Wilson's a great start. For me, I'm gonna go with Tua. Now it's been 3 weeks now since Tua's been back. He's had a home game against the Cardinals, and he has back-to-back road games against Buffalo this past Monday night in Los Angeles. Justin, I got to say that, Tua and this offense have been absolutely disappointing this year. Even before Tua got hurt, I mean, people were picking Tyreek Hill in the first 4 or 5 picks of drafts this year. He hasn't really, obviously scored a touchdown, but it just hasn't, this Dolphins, team hasn't really felt as Dolphins as we can. A-Chain is doing all he can there. But even my guy, Jalen Waddle, is struggling. But, Justin, this is the game to get back on track. They're home with Las Vegas. Las Vegas, one of the worst defenses in the league, one of the most dysfunctional teams in the league. It's sad to say that because I love my guy, Antonio Pierce there. But you know what? I like Tua to have 4 touchdowns this week. I don't even think that's a bold prediction there. I just think that the fact that they're home, Tua's, he's kind of getting back on the flow. And I think defense can give him some key stops. And I know Mike McDaniels is kind of trying to get this team back on track. They're still way outside the playoff hunt here. But if they can string a couple games together, they won this past weekend, this past Monday night, and then this should be an easy game for Tua. And they have a history of once they kind of take off and lighting everybody on fire, they don't hold back. A game to kind of mention is another AFC West opponent besides the Raiders. The matchup last year against the Broncos, where they put up 70. And Tua had a great game, A-Chain had a great game, and everybody had a great game and feasted. So this is a game where I think Tua has 4 touchdowns. You can start him. But Justin, I will say, if Tua does not have a great game this weekend, I am OUT on him and potentially on other Dolphins pass catchers like Jalen Waddle. Maybe you're not out on Tyreek Hill because it's the name. He's a superstar, and he scored a touchdown on Monday. But I'm just saying, with Tua's sake, I think that I might be out on him specifically after this week if he doesn't perform at a high level. But definitely, for right now, I'm confident Tua is my start of the week at the quarterback position.
I like this pick. Last week it was a game where they struggled. It was not pretty across the board. I know Tyreek got in the end zone, but overall, the Dolphins just didn't play that well. And but heading into this week, they play the Raiders, who have been one of the worst teams in the league. I was looking back just to see how Tua has done in the past. They played the Raiders last year, and Tua was able to go for 325 and 2 in this game. So he has some history against the Raiders. That they were also coached by Pierce at the time as well. But I just think with Tua, right, they come off a bad game on the road. Now they're home against in a better matchup. So I expect a lot of good things for Tua and the Dolphins. As much as they really have had an underwhelming season, they're 3-6, which is 1.5 games away from the wild card. They're not that far off from being that 7 seed where the Broncos are at right now. So they're not out of it. They've been ugly. They really don't look like a team that should be in the playoffs. And I'm not predicting that they're going to make the playoffs, but I know as a team, they're at a state where they have Tyreek for another couple years. They got Waddle already on a new contract. Mostert's probably like last season or two, so they're in it to win it now, even though they're 3-6. So I think they're going to be trying to go, kill it through the next, month to 2 months before the season ends. So I expect Tua to have a good game in this one. I think they're going to dominate this game. I think Gardner Minshew's the one starting, but I feel like they're hot potatoing with quarterbacks. I don't trust the Raiders at all to get anything really going. But Tua and them will do well on that. So I like that pick there. For me at the running back position, I have Kareem Hunt in what might be his last game as the starter. I don't know if Pacheco's returning next week, but he was activated from IR, so he's on that 21-day, 3-week window where he's got to return either this week, next week, or the next one. But this week, looking at this game, the Bills are 31st against the running back, so they are one of the worst. Taylor just went over 100. I'm trying to think of who they played the week before that. They're slipping my mind. Hold up real quick. But anyway, the Bills defense has been one of the worst against the running back. And the plus is that they've actually been pretty good against the pass. So I don't see Mahomes and them wanting to chuck it around all the time and wanting to keep the ball away from the Bills. That's how I see this game going. And we saw Devon Achane, who it was.
Yeah, the Dolphins. I didn't want to interrupt you, but Achane had a great game.
Right.
Excellent.
So thank you for that. But yeah, Achane had a phenomenal game. So we've seen the Bills really struggle against the run. Kareem Hunt has been phenomenal. He's getting catches out the backfield as well as kind of leading this backfield on the ground. So he is a full must start. I think he's a top 5 play, honestly, on the week. In what might be his last game as like a set and forget it starter.
Yeah, Justin, I'm kind of in that pool there. I mean, I have Kareem Hunt and Pacheco in one of our main leagues, and I really don't know what to do after this week. So I guess I'll figure it out next week there, Justin, and kind of roll the dice there with Kareem Hunt. I really hope he does have a great game and such. And so, I'm rooting for Kareem Hunt. Buffalo has struggled. I want to mention something that Jonathan Taylor, I think he hit 100 yards right before halftime last week, I would say. Definitely, excited as a Kareem Hunt owner. Hopefully this game's a shootout of shootouts there, and hopefully, we get a ton of fantasy points from this game. For me at the running back position, I'm going to go with the guy that you just traded for. I love his back half of the season. They're going to need to get some points going. I think in the next couple weeks, though, I think Detroit will kind of hold back from passing. We're not sure if Sam Laporta is going to play. There might be some games where they're just leading in the game. And I just love Jahmyr Gibbs. They played the Jags this week. Look at these past couple weeks. Before Aaron Jones went out, he had 88. Before Aaron Jones went out of last week's game, he had 88 yards. I think he missed the whole second half. The week before, Saquon Barkley had a beautiful game for all fantasy owners. Even had a backwards hurdle. And then the week before, Josh Jacobs torched them on the road there. Literally everyone's been able to cook Jacksonville all year. I like Jahmyr Gibbs this week. I would say that, they struggle against really fast, running backs there. And Jahmyr Gibbs is probably the fastest running back they're going to see all season. Maybe you make the argument he's a little faster than Saquon there. So, I'd like, Jahmyr Gibbs to take a touchdown outside of 50, 60 yards there. Maybe a little receiving touchdown. I know you love to hear that. You'll hype up my running back, Justin. I'll hype up yours. I love Gibbs. This matchup, they're home. He didn't have a lot of touches last week in Houston. He didn't have too many great plays. He kind of got hot late in that second half to kind of lead them in certain drives to score. But you know what, Justin? They wrote, Montgomery got the touchdown last week. So I do think that they're going to play a little pattern here, a little hot potato. And they're going to go with Gibbs this week as their hot hand at running back. That's one of the beauties of this Lions offense. So give me Jahmyr Gibbs for sure this week. I like it. Start it. He is my start of the week.
Yeah, obviously he's starting for you, but it's kind of interesting that he on ESPN is ranked the 9th highest projection at running back. So he's not one of those top guys, which I think that we're expecting to have a really good game, really good matchup. They're going to be in the lead pretty comfortably, which you could argue. They're going to be running the football. They're not going to need to throw it too much. So I agree. Gibbs locked and loaded for this week. Moving to wide receiver, I feel like I'm praising your team this week, so get ready for a victory. I got the stack with George Pickens. With obviously I said Russell Wilson's my start of the week at quarterback. I think George Pickens is in line for a wonderful game. He's been really good since Russ has been a part of this as a starting quarterback, and now playing the worst defense against wide receivers. I think it's just going to be points, and even so. I think Baltimore is going to score on this Pittsburgh defense, and that's going to allow Pittsburgh to want to throw the ball. And Pickens has just been so good. I don't know if there's much more to say besides great matchup. He's been playing really great. He finally has a good quarterback to get the ball in his hands, and he's a must start.
Yeah, Justin, looking at this game last year, this very same stadium, kind of very same situation, they did have Kenny Pickett at quarterback, but in that victory for the Steelers, they were able to get Pickens the ball a lot. He had 6 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. I think his touchdown was outside of 50 yards there. I think it was a 59-yarder there, a bomb there from Kenny Pickett. So I hope it's kind of tripled this week. I hope, obviously not, 300 whatever yards, but I think Russell can kind of get him the ball a little bit more. And they still have targets to distract this, weak Baltimore secondary. We have Mike Williams there. We have Calvin Austin, Freiermuth, to kind of move this ball around. So I definitely like it. And one thing I want to kind of note as well is kind of the same script with the running backs near Pittsburgh, that Jalen Warren kind of had more yards there. I think Najee was also battling an injury, but still played. Still had 14 carries. And so it's kind of a similar set here that we'll probably see a little bit more Jalen Warren there out of the backfield as well as getting catches. So, definitely like this game for some shootout potential. For me, I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel. Now, Dewey Nation, I know you're probably thinking, hey, Genoa, you had Deebo Samuel last week. Look, I meant to say this week. I don't know. I got my things mixed up. I like Deebo Samuel this week. I feel like with the 49ers, I've been kind of consistent with this now. The first half of the season didn't look so good. I was a little unoptimistic. But now, Justin, I feel like for some reason, even without IU, this San Francisco offense is about to take off. They're about to catch fire. And this week is going to be a Deebo week. I think that, he was able to, come back last week. And I think he had, 70 yards last week after coming off his little illness. But now I think he's healthy, ready to go. They're home. They're going against Seattle. And I just love Deebo this week. Something tells me it's a Deebo week. And it's just, I want to probably possibly add that maybe Purdy is also start of the week. I just love Purdy the rest of the year, Justin. He has potential to be a top 10, top 7 fantasy quarterback for the rest of the year. This offense is not going to miss a beat without IU. They still have Kittle and Deebo and now Pearsall and McCaffrey back. And so I think that a lot of defenses are going to be confused, and every other week's going to be different. Last week, Kittle scored a touchdown with Pearsall. I think it's a pattern. This week is going to be Deebo. I like him to go for 2 touchdowns this week, 122 yards, 6 catches, and maybe about 4 to 5 carries for about 20, 30 yards there. Deebo is going to kill it this week. They're at home. He's more of a home kind of guy. Deebo is one of those receivers that are a little bit quiet on the road. But when they play in Santa Clara, when they're at Levi Stadium, especially on a Sunday afternoon there in front of the 49er faithful, I love Deebo out of a great game, especially against a divisional rival that has been struggling mightily there, Justin. So give me Deebo Samuel as my start of the week at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I really like that Deebo take. I have a couple things to kind of aid in your take, is something to monitor. George Kittle left the game a little injured. He's got some hamstring irritation. They said they don't have too much concern that he won't miss the game, but he could be limited in some fashion, which would help Deebo's value on the week. And then also, Deebo's history against the Seahawks has been pretty nice. He's had out of his 7 games against the Seahawks in his career, he's had 5 of them go for over 100 yards, and he scored 4 touchdowns in those games. So I think that he is in line for a really good game. He's still their number 1 guy. I know people are getting really hyped about Juwan Jennings, and rightfully so. But I think Deebo's that guy that we're just waiting for one of those big games to happen, and it probably will happen this week. Moving to the sour side of our episode, as per usual, is our sit of the week, and I got DJ Moore. They play the Packers at home. Last week was the week. I said it. If he didn't do anything, I was OUT, and he did not do anything. The Bears are collapsing in front of our eyes, and I really don't want any Bears player even Swift. Like I just don't think this Bears team is really rolling in the way that we want it to. And now they get to play Daddy Packer. Their daddy, the Packers, who have just dominated them for feels like decades now. So I can't find a way for me to start him in any league that I have him in. So I'm out on the season for him, and especially this week where he's going to probably be shadowed by Jair Alexander.
Yeah, Justin, I am very concerned for these Bears playmakers. Looking at DJ Moore there, he's only had 100 yards only once this year, Justin. Only once. And that was against his former team, the lowly Carolina Panthers. And that was the last time he scored a touchdown there, Justin. We're looking at week 5, which is unbelievably terrible. Ever since then, Justin, he has not been able to crack 40 yards. 40 yards. That's crazy. And an offense that has so much potential to be great with the quarterback that has a pretty good arm, right? And Justin, it seems that now he was so much better with Justin Fields. And, I was kind of first to say this. Yes, I love Caleb Williams, but I just never understood the Justin Fields slander. Obviously, right now, Pittsburgh, I guess you just got to say that maybe they're kind of giving Russell his final chance because, if Russell were to struggle right now in Pittsburgh, he'd be OUT as well, and then go for Fields. And Fields is the future of Pittsburgh. So, you can make the argument that maybe Fields was never the problem. It's just the Chicago Bears organization is possibly a problem, and that is their fault for not firing Eberflus. And now they fired Shane Waldron, and they have a new offensive coordinator there. I don't think it makes much change. I think that you should have kind of had this change going into last week's game against a Patriots team that's inexperienced, but a team in Green Bay that ever since Matt LaFleur has been there, I don't think he has lost once as a Green Bay Packers head coach. And that is very concerning. And they literally dominate in Chicago, Justin. Literally dominate in Chicago. I mean, maybe in Lambeau, they might give him a little bit more run for the money, but no. When they're home with the Packers, they struggle. And like you said, I think he possibly OUT out with DJ Moore this week. It really surprises me the deep chances, the deep throws, the deep targets he gets. And it seems like when he was in Carolina, he got a lot of those, whether it was Cam Newton or I don't know if you remember Kyle Allen or last year with Fields. And so it's just unbelievable. And he gets no looks down the sideline. I mean, last couple of weeks he's got 6 and 9 targets the past 2 weeks, but it's just they're not able to click. And this team needs a new coaching staff. I think Caleb Williams would benefit from it. But as far as for this week, Justin, definitely going to be looking at sitting DJ Moore. I have DJ Moore in our Elite League, and I also have my sit of the week, Brian Thomas, in our Elite League. And these are two guys that I am on the fence of starting. I'm confident in starting T. Higgins, who could be returning from injury. I'm even confident in starting Jameson Williams, who's home with Jacksonville there. He's a pretty good receiver in Ford Field for the Lions. So Brian Thomas is my guy that I'm sitting for the week. Obviously, it's a no-brainer here. You don't have your starting quarterback, and Mac Jones just looked awful. I mean, let's just be real here. Mac Jones, besides his rookie year, has looked like a complete bust. Not the Mac Jones we saw throwing to Devontae Smith in college. Not the Mac Jones we saw in his rookie year, leading the Patriots to a playoff berth. And you know what, Justin? I'm not really sure what to think about Brian Thomas for the rest of the year. Something tells me that maybe they should have kind of left him out the past 2 weeks because, 2-3 weeks ago it was said that he was going to be out for nearly a month. They're thinking about putting him on IR. You got to think that maybe this injury is lingering in some ways. And I'm just not excited for Brian Thomas this week. They're home with, I believe, they're at the Lions, excuse me. And, that defense is dominant. I do think that they're going to kind of end this game soon. There's going to be a chance that maybe we don't see Brian Thomas get snaps late in the third quarter just because, a couple of weeks ago, the Lions had a home game against the Titans, and it was pretty much over by, before halftime even started. And maybe Doug Peterson might be looking into mention his top guys with Trevor Lawrence already out. There's no really point to keep pushing. So you might not get Brian Thomas at all for the rest of the year there. Or for the rest of that second half of the game. So, I mean, Justin, if there's guys like Neighbors you need to start, other people like maybe, other people that are on bye week this week, maybe you got to start Brian Thomas. But for me, Justin, he's most definitely the sit of the week.
Yeah, it's tough with Brian Thomas. The Mac Jones thing is the real story that makes me a little unsure. I'm happy that he's now going to be 3 weeks removed from his injury, his chest injury. Because the last 2 weeks have been very ugly. I believe he's got two catches in each of those games, under 5.5 fantasy points in both of those. So it's been really bad busts. The only smidge of hope you could look for in this week with Brian Thomas, if you have to start him, is it's garbage time. If they decide that they're going to roll out with him, they're going to be down. It's going to be I think it's going to be a smoke show where Detroit's just going to be dominating. And the only good thing that can come from it is if he gets a garbage time touchdown. But otherwise, I agree. I'm a little worried for him this week. And then moving to the last part of our episode, kickers of the week. Real quick, we always discuss guys you just throw in your lineup that you could pick up, hopefully, and it could win you a week. You never know. This week I have Jake Bates, Lions kicker. Obviously, had the game winner against the Texans on Sunday Night Football. But he's got he's playing against the Jaguars on the Lions, and I just think they're going to be in scoring position every single drive, and I feel like a lot of his points might be coming in that second half where they probably don't have Jared Goff in or something like that, but they're still driving, and then they just kick 40-yard field goals because then their offense isn't good enough to score. But I think they're going to be in scoring position every drive, and that's where you need your kicker.
Yeah, Justin, I love Jake Bates. Man, he hit some crazy field goals on us on Sunday night. I mean, this guy looks like the next Justin Tucker, the next Aubrey. Justin, I would be very upset if Bates has a bad game against the Jags this week because, I mean, Justin, he made some absolutely close field goals. Many of them look like they were literally going to be missed. I'm talking about inches away from the crossbar. But it just seemed like someone was right there, like God was right there and just gave it a little air, and it just went. I mean, Justin, it just did not look good for both of his final two field goals. The one that tied the game at 23 and the one to win it right at the buzzer. I mean, he better have 8 made field goals, and he better not miss a field goal for the rest of the year. In fact, he better be kicking the game-winning field goal in the Super Bowl to beat Baltimore or Kansas City. I mean, this guy better be the next Vinatieri. Because, man, as a Texans fan, I'm just a little bit salty, Justin. Just a little bit salty. I mean, part of me is very angry with him and just wish that he stayed at Home Depot or whatever he was before they called him up. But it's okay. It's okay. He's a kicker that should be a top 5 kicker for the rest of the year, no doubt. For me, I'm going to go Chris Boswell there. And, there's 2 ways that this Pittsburgh Steelers game could go. It could be a shootout where Russell's throwing 1, 2, 3 TDs. Or this could be a game where Russell's getting them over the 50-yard line. However, they're not able to convert because Baltimore's possibly ticked off from their Thursday night game last week from getting torched by Jahmyr and the Bengals. And this could be a game where it's just Boswell getting field goals. Kind of like if you guys watched Monday Night Football where Josh Hardy there was getting field goal after field goal, and the Rams never really scored a touchdown. So that could be something that, Lamar Jackson is scoring touchdown for touchdown. And every answer that the Pittsburgh Steelers have is just a field goal. Lamar will score. Pittsburgh comes out, scores a field goal. Maybe Lamar Jackson, the Ravens score again. Pittsburgh comes out, scores a field goal. We're looking at a possible 14-12 score at halftime. So I do like Chris Boswell there. Get 4 to 5 field goals there to kind of chip away this lead because, we do believe that Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry is going to be ready to go for this game, even though they're on the road. They had more time to rest. So this Steelers offense could potentially be looking at just field goals. And I like Boswell there. He's at home. He's always performed well at home. So I like Boswell to be the top kickers for sure this week.
Yeah, I like Boswell. He's been one of the most consistent kickers all season long. And as you mentioned, as we talk about, we think Pittsburgh's going to be in scoring position all the time. I mean, he's literally second best kicker on the year. So I agree. I think it's perfect for him. I mean, he had a bad game last week, but that was because they scored 4 touchdowns. So that doesn't happen for him every week, and I expect some field goals. And Pittsburgh's going to be in scoring position every drive. So I like that there. Dwayne Nation, that's our starts of the week. We also threw in some trade talks. That's why we got a little bit longer of an episode. But thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Let's keep getting it. Let's keep getting it big. Keep building up Dwayne Sports together. And Jano, send us out.
Yo, Dwayne Nation. This was our starts and sits of the week as we take the road to the fantasy playoffs and the fantasy championships which will be underway this time next month. We'll be getting ready for that first round. And so, this is definitely some episodes to pay attention to get you some wins, to move you up in the standings, or to potentially be clinching a playoff spot. I know a lot of people across many fantasy leagues are clinching fantasy playoff spots there. It gets very exciting. This is what we draft for. This was what we had, this is what it all comes down to there. So thank you, Drew Nation, for watching. We have many more episodes for you for the week. We love you guys. Thanks for watching. And as always, peace.